Good morning, my lovelies, and happy Monday. Before we begin today, I am really excited to see lots of people using the Padlet website. Don't forget that there is a link at the end of this video and there is a link on your learning PDFs. If you'd like to share any of the learning that you've done, it can be pictures of stuff that you've made, it can be pictures of your writing, it can literally just be a hello to anyone. So make sure that you're using that because it's a nice little resource that just year 6 have. On offer today, we have got some more Tom's Midnight Garden, some weight and capacity in maths, which will be new learning. So that's quite exciting. I know a lot of you have been enjoying the volume lessons that Mrs. Perry did last week. In SPAG, we're going to be looking at nouns, and in English, we have a new purpose for writing. Ooh, I wonder what it will be.
Hello Year 6. Today you're going to read chapter 21 and 22 of Tom's Midnight Garden. You may remember at the end of chapter 20, Hattie had been skating, ice skating, and they had read some of the Bible. So now you're going to read chapter 21, 22, and then there's the questions on the next page for you to answer. Here are your questions for today. You'll be able to check your answers on the next page. Good luck with those. Here are the answers for today's questions. Hope you got on all right with those today. So we're going to do some maths now, and we're going to start with our skills practice. There's quite a selection of questions for you here. Just a couple of reminders about some of the things that you'll be doing here today. On this one, where you've got the larger numbers, you're going to use your bus stop for division, and you'll need to make a list of your 23 times table to help you with that. When you are adding your fractions, so 4/9 add 2/5, when you're adding them, please remember that the denominators need to be the same before you can start adding. So there's a little clue there. You need to make those denominators the same before you start. And remember that whatever you do to the denominator, you must do to the numerator to match. On here, because we're dividing by a power of 10, we're dividing by 100, you wouldn't need to use your bus stop. You can just slide the numbers along to divide them by 100. On here, 3/7 times 6. You need to remember that 6, we would write it as the fraction 6/1. 6/1. And then when you're timesing, it's just straightforward. The denominators don't have to be the same. Just times the numerator by the numerator, which will be the 6, and the denominator by the denominator, which would have the 1 on the bottom here. And finally, 31%. Probably the best way is to find 10% first. So you divide this by 10 to find 10%. You then need 3 of those to have your 30%, and then to find your 1%, you're going to divide your number by 100. Hope those little reminders and clues help, and the answers will be on the next page. Good luck with those. So here are the answers to your skills practice so that you can see how you got on today. This one here, it's an improper fraction. So we then write it as a whole number and a fraction. If you've put that as your final answer though, we would count that as correct. And today for our maths, we're going to be thinking about weight and capacity. We measure weight using grams and kilograms, and hopefully you might remember that 1,000 grams make a kilogram. So the grams are smaller, and so if you were measuring something that wasn't too heavy, a little pot of something, some foods, a small amount would be measured in grams. If you're measuring something heavier, so perhaps a pet or something a bit heavier, you're going to measure that in kilograms. Now, as I said, there are 1,000 grams in a kilogram, and quite often in maths we're asked to change from one to the other, so writing something in grams that's been given to us in kilograms, or the other way around. So we need to have a think about that now, how we convert from one to the other. So let's have a look at how we actually do this converting. What we need to remember is that there's 1,000 grams inside every kilogram, and that will help us. So here, if we've got 1 kilogram, inside there 1,000 grams. So 2 kilograms, inside there 2,000 grams. 0.5 kilograms, now 0.5 means half, so if you've got half of this, you're going to have half of that, so half of 1,000, you've got your 500. So hopefully those make sense to you, you can see what's going on. Now, to help us think about some possibly a bit harder ones, it's useful to look at the pattern that's going on. And because there's 1,000 of these inside each one of those, what you're actually doing is getting this number and timesing it by 1,000 to reach this one. So getting the kilograms, if you times that number by 1,000, you now know your grams. Okay, now remember, times by 1,000, you slide your number along 3 times. So if you see the 5 is here in the 0.5, slide 5 along, 1, 2, 3, there we go. 0.6, so the 6 would be here after the decimal point, slide it along, 1, 2, 3, you've got 600 grams. So hopefully you can see the pattern with that. So this one, which is in kilograms at the moment, times that by 1,000 and you know your grams. Times it by 1,000 to know your grams, and times this by 1,000 to know your grams. So hope you can see the pattern there. Now obviously, to convert the other way, moving from grams to kilograms, we're doing the opposite. So we're dividing by 1,000. So remembering that 1,000 grams will give us 1 kilogram. If we've got 3,000 grams, that's enough for 3 kilograms, isn't it? 7,000 grams, 7 kilograms, and so on. And when we get to some possibly trickier ones, remember that skill of dividing by 1,000. So you're sliding the numbers along 3 times the other way. So 1, 2, 3 puts the 6 there, and 1, 2, 3 puts the 5 after the decimal point. Okay, so to divide this by 1,000, 4 is here, 1, 2, 3 puts it in the units, and 1, 2, 3 we put it after the decimal point. So you're dividing by 1,000 to move from your grams to kilograms. Now that you know that and you've seen those patterns, you're going to try some work on the next page. So what we've got here is some different weights. Some of them are written in kilograms and some of them grams. And I'd like you to write them in order from the lightest to the heaviest. Also, if the amount is written in grams, you're going to write it in kilograms and vice versa. So if it's in kilograms, you're going to write it in grams. So what you'll end up with is all of these in order from lightest to heaviest, but also there'll actually be 2 for each one because you're going to write each value as kilograms and as grams. So you'll have a list, lightest to heaviest, but there'll be 2 things in each list because you're writing them both ways. Good luck with those then, and the answers will be on the next page for you to check your work. So here are the answers. In blue are the amounts that you were given, and then in red were the ones that you needed to convert, and also they've been put into order for you from smallest to biggest. Hope you got on okay with those. If you didn't, or if it was very a bit confusing, perhaps go back and listen to the instructions again, because we're going to try some more in a minute, and perhaps next time you'll be able to get more right. So now we're going to think about capacity. Capacity is how much something can hold, and if the thing we're holding is liquid, then we measure that in millilitres and litres. So if you have a small amount of liquid, perhaps just a small amount of medicine or some small amount of liquid you're putting into a recipe, you would measure that in millilitres. If you have a lot of liquid, so those very big squash bottles that you can buy, or a big bottle of washing up liquid, that would be measured in litres. Now, once again, like the fact that there are 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram, we've actually got 1,000 millilitres in a litre. So the maths is exactly the same, and you can see here that 2 litres means we have 2,000 millilitres. So you're going to do the same job again. You're going to put these amounts of liquid into order from smallest to greatest. So these here into order. And once again, if it's written in millilitres, you're also going to write it in litres. If it's written in litres, also write it in millilitres. So you'll end up with a list, smallest to biggest, 2 things each time. Nothing new to explain to you because the maths is exactly the same, because 1000 millilitres gives you 1 litre, so it's exactly the same idea. Good luck with those, and the answers will be on the next page. So here are the answers to your questions. Hope you got on okay with those. And now we're going to have just a few more questions to help check your understanding. So we have some statements here. Some of these are true and some of them are false. I'd like you to try and sort out which is which, whether true or false. Just a reminder that when you have this sign here, that's greater than, because the crocodile's mouth is opening this way to the big one, greater than, and then this is less than. This means less than. So that one is less than this one. And once again, the crocodile's mouth opens to the big number. Hope that little reminder helps. Good luck with those questions. Remember, you're saying whether the statements are true or false, and the answers will be on the next page. And here are the answers to your true or false questions, and you'll be able to see how you got on with those today. Hope that was good, and you're going to do some work now with Miss Tucker. Bye for now.
Okie dokie, nouns. What are nouns? Nouns are naming words. They are the name for different objects or emotions or places or people or feelings. They are the names for things. As you're going forward into high school, etc., you will need to know what they are and be able to spot them within a sentence. So we know that there are 3 types of nouns that we can categorize nouns into. We've got common nouns, proper nouns, and collective nouns. Common nouns are everyday words. I always think of table. For some reason, when we think of common nouns, it can be singular, so a table, or it can be plural, tables. Okay, so objects, common nouns, earring, scissors, glue stick, jar. I'm just naming things that are around me. All of these are common nouns. Proper nouns are for people, places, days, or months. They always, always, always start with a capital letter, unless you happen to be in Miss Tucker's class in Year 6, where everyone seems to forget capital letters exist. So they always start with capital letters. And then we have collective nouns, which I love. Things like a raft of otters, or, oh, this is a new one I learned. So like otters, when penguins are on the water, they are called a raft of penguins. But when they're on land, they're called a waddle of penguins, or a gaggle of geese. I love collective nouns. So I have got for you some words at the bottom. Well, they're nouns at the bottom. I would like you to put them into the 3 columns. Be aware that the proper nouns do not have capital letters on my list, so you can't just use that as a giveaway of where they go. So if it is a proper noun, please replace its capital letter in your final list. Pause the video now and have a go at that in your books. Okay, here are your answers for the nouns sorting table. So common nouns, we've got table, mud, buttons, teacher, mountain, hat, sky, monkeys, and teapot. In proper nouns, we have February, Brazil, Penny Lane, River Thames, Queen Victoria, Wednesday, Robert, and Bristol. All of those need capital letters. And collective nouns, we've got flock, herd, pack, team, gaggle, crowd, shoal, and swarm. Okay, a trickier way that we can categorize nouns is abstract and concrete. So a good way to remember concrete is we can touch concrete, it's really heavy and it hurts when it hits your foot. Concrete nouns are things that we can touch, and if we drop on our feet, they will probably hurt us. Okay, they are things that we can touch or taste or smell or hear. Concrete nouns are physical in some way, whereas abstract nouns are really hard to think about. They are things that we can't see, touch, taste, smell, or hear. I always like to think of emotions for this. So although if I said, for example, when I'm nervous, my heart beats really, really fast. So that is a physical response, but that isn't nervousness. I can't physically feel nervousness. I have a physical response to it. Or when I'm embarrassed, my cheeks might go red and I might feel them burning up. But that isn't embarrassment. I'm not physically touching it. That's how my body reacts to embarrassment. So it's hard to work these ones out. So take your time with this, and we need to think, which of these nouns can we touch and which of them can't we touch, which are abstract and which are concrete. Pause the video and resume when you're ready for the answers. Okay, so here are the answers for concrete and abstract nouns. Things like apples, chairs, houses, lights, myself, walruses, tissues, and noise, we can either touch, taste, hear, or smell them. The abstract nouns are all things that we can't touch, taste, smell, or hear. Things that always get caught up in these is fear, when you feel fear, but remember that's how your body reacts to that emotion. So some people feel fear differently as well, so that shows that it is not a concrete noun. Education, I remember when we talked about this in class, you all told me that when you get certificates and things, that proves your education or is an attribute of education, but once again, you're not touching education, you are touching a certificate. Okay, so those are really hard to think about. Well done if you got those correct. Good job. Okay, team, I have got for you in your PDF pack 2 different texts. There is an extract from Tom's Midnight Garden, and there is a piece of work that has been created by a previous year 6, which incidentally is graded at greater depth, so it's nice to have a little look at. What I would like you to do is take your time, pause the video, read through it, and decide what is the purpose of these texts. When you've decided the purpose, I'd like to start the video again and we'll go through some of the features together. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the purpose now. The purpose of these texts is to... Okay, so your purpose is to enthrall, to engage, to entertain. So these are both descriptive pieces and their pure purpose is for entertainment. When we talk about entertainment or engaging, we know that the reader wants, always enjoys reading. When we talk about enthralling somebody, we hook them in. They hang on the author's every word. So these texts don't just engage, they hook the reader in. You can create some nice tension in these texts. So let's have a look at some of the features of Tom's Midnight Garden text when he just opens the back door and discovers his secret magical garden. So one of the features that we can use is an ellipsis. There's one up here and there's one down here. Now ellipses create tension. They add an extra long pause. We know when we read out loud, we pause slightly for commas, longer for full stops, and ellipses, they create tension. When an author reads an ellipsis, they pause, whether they're doing it in their head or out loud, and that creates just a moment of suspension. If I read out the first little bit for you. Never having had an occasion to use the door, Tom had no idea how it might be secured at night. If it were locked, and they kept the key elsewhere, but it was not locked, he found, only bolted. He drew the bolt and very slowly, to make no sound, turned the doorknob. So that pause there is almost a revelation. So we can imagine that at that point, Tom's walking downstairs or walking towards the door and thinking, if it were locked, where would they keep the key? But as he sees that door, that ellipsis shows that he sees that door and realizes that there's not a lock on it, just a bolt that he can undo. So that ellipsis creates tension because we're like, oh, what's happened? But what? But what's he seen to make him stop in his trail of thoughts? So those complex sentences at the beginning also create that sense of his internal thoughts. We know that that is what Tom is thinking as he's moving towards the door. That those couple of extended complex sentences at the start make us think that we are in Tom's head. We're hearing or reading what he is thinking at that point. So we have got semicolons all over the shop in this text, which is lovely. To join clauses. So in the text, in the sentence that I've just read, which is, oh, I can't draw on that, there. But it was not locked, he found, only bolted. That's linking the two sentences together. I could have swapped that semicolon for something else. I could even swapped it with the word it. He found it only bolted, or it was only bolted. But that semicolon is chopping it up a little bit more. It's chopping those sentences, it's getting rid of unnecessary words, it's making it more concise. And that at that point is like the revelations in Tom's head. So he's going, but it wasn't locked. He found only bolted. He's like, yes, oh, thank goodness, it's not locked, it's bolted. Brilliant. It's that sudden jumpiness, and that creates a bit of excitement. It changes the atmosphere a bit from this wandering thinking to, oh my goodness, look, it's just bolted. Yes, I can go through the door. There are some more semicolons as well later on, but we will look at why they're used in a moment. So, parenthesis. There is some lovely parenthesis as daylight. Here you go. As he goes through the door, we've got some parentheses shown, and we're using a dash. We don't need the 2 dashes because it's at the end of a sentence and we don't have a dash then a full stop. And there is at the top in that first bit again, he drew the bolt and very slowly, to make no sound, turned the doorknob. Okay, so nice bit of parenthesis. We know they add extra detailed information to it, and there's a bit more there. Lie to him. Okay, like, oh, that's where it's an afterthought almost. They deceived him. They lied to me. It's that creating that idea that we are in Tom's head, that sudden realization. Those people lied. They said there was nothing behind this door. We have some reported speech. So, here, Tom is recanting what he was told about the back garden. To show that it is reported speech, they have got inverted commas. In this publication, they have only used 1 inverted comma by itself, but we know that we can use 2, and we remember that we think of it as 66C P99. That helps us remember. Oh goodness, it's hard to write on this. I'm trying to write but not get in the way of other things that will appear, so I do apologise if it's a bit scruffy. We have got commas before a direct address within that speech as well. So if we look right about here, because we talked about this as well in SPAG last week, if you are addressing somebody directly and you use their name, we should have a comma before and after it. Okay, we've got some repetition of language. I'm going to run out of colours. Let's go green. So here, they've repeated the word nothing to give us emphasis on it. So we have the reported speech of, really, there's nothing to see. And Tom is angry at this point, or frustrated, because there is something to see. So he's going, nothing? Only this glorious back garden that I've just found. So he's repeating it to emphasize it. He's emphasizing it because it's just, and in his point of view at this time, a bold, barefaced lie. So it's repeating that idea. He's repeating it because he's frustrated, as they described what he sees as such a beautiful garden as nothing. That nothing also links between those 2 paragraphs. So he's repeated it to start the next paragraph. If the author had put all this description in this paragraph up here, it'd be way too long. Okay, because this is a different idea. The author is describing the garden. It deserves to be in a different paragraph. So to link those 2 paragraphs, they've repeated the word nothing across the 2, the end of the paragraph and the beginning of the paragraph, to make that cohesive link. That's an example of cohesion in action. We have used colons and semicolons to report an extended list. So we've got our colon to introduce the items, and because the items aren't just one word, we're not going to buy. We're not talking about shopping, Miss Tucker. Come on, get your mind off food. We're not going to the shops to buy certain 1 items. We are currently in a garden, but he could have described it as there was a tree, beetle, oh, not beetle, oh goodness, Miss Tucker, there was a tree, use, greenhouse. If he did that, it would just be commas. But because the author has expanded on these points, it's not just a tree, it's a towering fir tree. Okay, it's describing, it's added that detail, so we need the semicolons in between those items on that list to stop any confusion with all the commas going on. So in here as well, we can also start thinking about personification, similes, metaphors, alliteration, and using a variety of verbs and adverbs. So the browed use humped their shapes down the sides. There we can tell that they're little humps, mounds. They're not just dotted around, okay, or twisted away to some of the depths of the garden. Okay, we've used exciting, interesting verbs and adverbs to describe it. So because this is a descriptive piece, we also need to be thinking, yes, we need to be thinking about the basic structure, but we also need to be thinking, how can I make my description exciting? Your job is to decide on a location. So at the minute we are in quarantine and we can't go too far. But I would like you to imagine that there's a door in your house. And when you open that door, it takes you to the most wonderful place right now. Okay, it could be a bustling market somewhere. It could be a serene white beach with palm trees and the sea lapping in. It could be a secret forest. It could be dark caves to go on an adventure. It can be anywhere in the world that you like. I'd like you to try and keep it as a fictional place. No, sorry, not a fictional place, the opposite of a fictional place, a real place, a non-fiction place, a place that a person could actually visit in this world. If you would like to, it always helps me to sketch out where I'm going to go first. I'm going to describe something. Spend a bit of time sketching it out. You don't have to do all this today. You can spread it out over the week, or you can bosh it out in an afternoon. It's absolutely fine to you. But sometimes a picture helps us when we are developing descriptions. As you're writing it, keep reading. Keep reading aloud. Descriptive pieces, enjoyment pieces are made to be read aloud or to be read as a person in their head. But if you read it aloud, especially to somebody else, and say, does that sound right? What does this make you feel like? Does it make you excited if you're on an action-packed location? Say you're in the tombs of Tutankhamun and you're doing an Indiana Jones-esque kind of discovery of this amazing vault, and possibly there's like arrows whipping across, then you need it to be tense. If you're on a beach and it's serene, you want your reader to feel relaxed and in awe of the situation. So read it out loud, even if it's just to yourself. Is that how you want it to sound? If not, come back to this success criteria. What can you use from this toolkit to help embellish that writing more and to create the feeling that you want? Okay, so you have a choice of multiple ways of presenting this work if you would like. You can just write it straight out into your book. You can type it up on a computer and email it to me. You can type it up and put some pictures on. You could upload it onto Padlet, however you would like to show it. If you're writing into a book, if you want to do it in a more creative way, if you enjoyed the little pop-up bit that we did on our information text last week, as I know a lot of you did, you could consider this. Okay, so a creative way to do it, if you would like to, might be to write the first sentence as your character is starting to turn the doorknob to leave the house, and then putting a little paper door in, gluing down a little flap, and then writing your description behind the door. If you did do a drawing in your planning stage, you could even stick it on this side of the door, and then you've got your picture and then your writing. You don't have to do it like this, but it's just a nice little creative way if you would like to. Other than that, guys, happy writing, and I cannot wait to see what you have done. If you're feeling super proud of it, why not upload it to Padlet and show it for everybody else to have a look at? You're all really, really keen to read out your writing in English in our lessons in school. So a nice way to show off your work, instead of reading it aloud, is to pop it on Padlet if you would like to. Okay. Link to Padlet if you would like it is down here. Don't forget about all the other extra bits. If you would like to do those, don't stress though. You've probably spent a lot of time doing your writing this week. And if you're excited about the Stone Age, keep looking at these connected curriculum activities. I've seen lots and lots of bits of work that people have done over the last 2 weeks, and it looks phenomenal. Other than that, guys, have a great day, and I will speak to you all tomorrow. Bye.